Hello, and thank you for joining me for this very exciting launch of OVERTAKE, a new herbicide to the Syngenta portfolio. I'm Glenn Kirby, the Technical Manager for Syngenta UK and Ireland, and today we're going to run through this new product. So here we go. Thank you for joining. So what we're going to look at is we're going to have a look at the introduction, a brief overview of what the product is. We're going to have a look at what OVERTAKE as a product is, what the active ingredients are in there. How do we get the very best out of OVERTAKE? What have we learned through our trials that will help you get more out of this? We'll have a look at some user trial data and then a brief conclusion just to summarise all of it. Okay, so introduction. What we have is a new selective herbicide, and that herbicide is supported by a significant amount of research and science that Syngenta has done. And we have done over 73 trials across 9 countries looking at this product, and we are committed to ongoing research and development to help people get the very best out of this product. And out of that has come some really nice advice on performance and best practice, and we think it will be an important tool for helping you maintain high quality turf. Now, why is selective herbicide so important? Why is weed control important? So we've done some surveys in recent years talking to golfers to understand what the most important aspects of their game is, and you can see in this table where we have logged from the 12th question in that survey, asking them to think about the condition of the fairways and score all of the following parts on a score of 1 to 10, whereas 1 is not important and 10 is very important. And on average, we were hitting 75% what felt free of weeds was important enough to score a 7 or more. So that's really interesting to know. It is high up on the golfer's agenda. Higher than an absence of divots, bare patches and scars, which is very interesting to my mind. Obviously, ball sitting proud is number 1 and very important, but free of weeds is right up there. So this is an issue that needs some careful attention, which is where OVERTAKE comes into the equation. We are bringing OVERTAKE to the market. Now, OVERTAKE for Ireland is available for sports pitches, golf courses, race courses and gallops, bowling greens, airfields, professional application to commercial and residential lawns and other managed amenity turf and amenity grassland, so a quite wide-ranging label. It is a susceptible emulsion concentrate, and it contains 98 grams per litre of fluroxypyr and 2.45 grams per litre of fluoroazolam. Application rate is 2 litres a hectare, and it can be applied in water volumes of 120 up to 400 litres a hectare. Now, we've got some really interesting data later on to show you how to optimise this and get the very best out of it. And it wasn't what I was expecting or what I felt was best practice. So there's some useful bits there. Application timing. Spring is also the best time. Now, we've got some data to support this, and it's really interesting to look at some of that, so bear with us on that one. Pack size is 1 litre, and you can apply it through a tractor mounted hydraulic sprayer or a knapsack sprayer. So let's have a little look at the formulation. The OVERTAKE formulation provides a robust solution to weed control. We've got 2 mode of actions in there, which helps reduce that risk of weed resistance and increases the efficacy of it. Combining those 2 different classes of actives ensures we get effective broad spectrum weed control, and this helps to balance between the actives and allows OVERTAKE to work in a wide range of temperatures too. This novel susceptible emulsion formulation really helps maximise the performance. So it's a post-emergent herbicide. We have 98 grams a litre of fluroxypyr in there, which is a pyridine chemical group. Mode of action is that it disrupts hormone production. It's a synthetic auction, and it works on broadleaf weeds. Fluoroazolam is 2.45 grams per litre in there, with I'm going to give it a go, triazolopyrimidine sulfonylide. There we go. That inhibits the asalactic synthase, ALS, response in the plant. It is therefore an ALS enzyme inhibitor. Again, target species is broadleaf weeds, and they come in this susceptible emulsion formulation package. That means it contains both solid and liquid active ingredients dispersed into an aqueous phase for those of you that want to know about your formulations. So why are the weeds susceptible? How do these two actives impact the plant? Well, the fluroxypyr, that is the auxin growth hormone. The auxin growth hormone is central to plant development and growth, and it will impact that. So the fluroxypyr mimics the auxin, destabilising that plant development. A young broadleaf weed tissue is more sensitive to fluroxypyr. First symptoms are curling of the stems and leaves, and that is visible after 1 or 2 days. If we look at the flurazzolam, when we're thinking about plant physiology, the amino acids are the building block for proteins, and they are essential for plant growth. The flurazzolam targets protein biosynthesis, which is essential to young plants. Then we get disruption of this protein synthesis in the young plants. It's very effective at that stage. And discoloration of the weed may be noticeable for 1 to 2 weeks after application. We've done a lot of trial work on this. So this was 2019 and 2020. See, we've done 9 trials in that period on daisy. We've got 23 on clover. Dandelion, we've got 18, etc, etc. All of the information is up there and available for you. You can see we're getting good levels of control across a wide range of weeds. There are some challenging weeds in there. We're not going to shy away from that, with ribwort plantain and greater plantain both proving tricky to control. We've seen around 30% control to 50% control on those in these trials. In 2018, we've got some additional data here, and you can see that we're getting high levels of control throughout all of these trials. Convincing us it is a good product to get out there in the market, and you will see some nice success with these, with good application and good timings. Now, killing weeds is one thing, but you need to be sure that it is safe on your turf. That is what we're all looking to do out there, is develop high quality turf playing surfaces, and no one wants to put those at risk. So we've done a number of safety screenings with this. Spring and autumn 2019, we looked at it in both those 2 periods of the year, and we saw no phytotoxicity at 2 litres or 4 litres when we doubled that rate, just to kind of check for overlap or any misapplication. We tested that across 19 cool season grasses, including ryegrass, fescues of a wide range, bent grasses, smoothstalk meadowgrass and annual meadowgrass, and we saw no issues across the whole range, which is great news. So how do we get the best out of OVERTAKE? What have we learned from our trials to help you? Well, understanding the mode of action with these things is always very important. So the uptake and the movement is through the crown and the xylem. So OVERTAKE is mainly absorbed through those leaves and taken up through the xylem throughout the plant. It is not root active, so anything that is missing the leaf target and hitting the soil is not being taken up by the plant. It's not being utilised. OVERTAKE is safe for turf, but it's not for weeds. The flat, wide leaf morphology of broadleaf weeds enhances the absorption of OVERTAKE. Broadleaf weeds metabolise OVERTAKE slowly and inefficiently, and in grasses OVERTAKE is metabolised very quickly and efficiently, so its effects are absolutely minimal and not noticeable. So you can see from that why it's so important that we get this product in the right place to make the most of it. And you can see that as a summary of 21 of our trials across Europe in 2020, I've pulled the data together for a wide range of water volumes that are on the label. And we've averaged out all of the responses, all of the treatments, what we've achieved with the levels of control. And you can see we've got good control across a wide range of water volumes, but our optimum is 200 litres a hectare. And there is a difference there, going from 125 up to 200, there's a big step forward, and then we see that drop off the higher the water volume gets. So that's interesting to know, because I'm not sure it's advice I was ever given when I was applying these things. Now, to get that 200 litres a hectare, that optimum range, we need to understand how to do it well. And we worked with ICL to deliver an online quiz to understand where people's knowledge were. And one of the questions we asked is, what was the most effective way to significantly adjust water volume whilst achieving a high quality application? The best way to adjust water volume is to change the nozzle. You can adjust your forward speed, but really your forward speed is dictated by what is safe. It is not an effective way to adjust water volume. You can increase or lower pressure, but you have a very minimal range in which to increase that pressure. If you go too high, you start to get very drifty and you lose product to the atmosphere, and it doesn't hit the soil. If you go too low, then you lose your coverage quite quickly. So whilst you can adjust pressure with nozzle, you've got a very narrow range. The effective way to do it is by changing that nozzle rather than changing the pressure. One of the other questions we asked is, what do finer droplets lead to? And finer droplets will lead to more liquid remaining on the leaf, but an increased chance of drift. Several people got this wrong, and that just shows us that people don't fully understand this concept. So what we're trying to achieve here is adjusting to finer droplets, but minimizing and eliminating drift, so we get as much of those droplets sitting on the leaf, because that is where this product is taken up from. If it gets to soil, it gets lost. And we also asked in this quiz, what does increasing the spray pressure achieve? And by increasing the spray pressure, what we do is we increase the higher water volume, but we also increase the risk of drift. Now, some of you got this right, a lot of you got this right, but it's quite a few people still getting this wrong. So we've got to work really hard to get the water volume in the right range, but do it without messing around with the forward speed or the pressure too much. And what I've done here is I've taken the nozzle charts that you get with your nozzles and just highlighted what's going on. So if you wanted to use the red nozzles for this, we can have a look at this chart, and I've highlighted everything that's in that kind of acceptable range for this 200. And what you can see is, if you are driving around 5 or 6 kilometers an hour, which I think is a kind of standard application rate for green speed, 7 kilometers an hour is probably what's realistic for fairways, then you've got to be at some pretty low pressure in order to get that right. Now the 1.5 worries me a little bit. It's right on the bottom of where I want to be. I try and get in around 2 bar pressure. So if you're spraying fairways, maybe 7 kilometers an hour, then 2 bar of pressure, 7 kilometers an hour is probably where you want to be. And if you're using a red nozzle, an XC04, this is the kind of coverage, if you get everything set up, that you can probably expect. You see on this water sensitive paper on the screen that we've got really nice coverage across there, but we've got a little bit of run. You can see where all of those liquids have started to run into each other and merge. That is not what we're trying to achieve with this application, because that means as those liquids run into each other and merge, there's a good chance they're going to run off that leaf and they're going to drip to the lower parts, that kind of thatch of fibre, everything there, and that is product that is lost in this situation. So we want to maximise the amount of it getting to the leaf. So because of that, I would recommend going to the purple nozzles, and you can see there is a much wider range available to us of optimum sprays. If we want to get around that 200, it gives us much more range to do it. We can go at kind of 4, 5, 6, even 7 kilometers an hour with that 2 to 3 bar range. So that is what I'd recommend you do. Get yourself onto the purple nozzles, pick your forward speed, and pick a pressure somewhere between 2 and 3 bar to go with. Because those XC025 nozzles, they will give you good coverage, but you will get very little runoff. So what you'll see is when that applies to the leaf of the weed, you will see that staying on the leaf rather than running off to the soil, which is good news. That is where we want to get it. Now you could do all of that, or you could just go to the Greencast Turf app and use that and put in the water volume you're trying to spray at and let that work out what you're trying to do. And that will give you the same recommendation that I've just made. 2 bar at a 5 kilometer driving speed, which is your optimum to get the very best out of this product. So we asked a number of people what water volumes they are actually applying at. and what we saw was 80% of people were up at this 400 litres a hectare, and that is what they would use for herbicides, and less than 20% were down at this 200. So it is not normal practice to be applying at these lower water volumes, yet it will give you better efficacy out of herbicide. So if there's something you've taken out today, it's go back, have a look at your sprayer for your herbicide application, fine tune, tweak your nozzles in order to get you into that 200 litres a hectare water volume, because we're trying to get this to the leaf. So that's a bit about application. Let's have a little think about timings now. We want to be applying these when the weeds are young and they're not fully mature. So you've got to think about your target weeds, think about what you're trying to achieve, keep an eye open for them, and you want to get in once they start growing at that early phase. The younger the plant is, the more susceptible it is to this kind of thing. That gives you room to start boosting spring growth and recovery afterwards, and increasing the plant health and filling in the gaps that are lost, which will leave you with more resilient turf ready to survive that summer stress. So it's important to get in early. And again, if we look at all the trial work that we've done, everything supports that. We've got spring timings and we've got autumn timings, and the lighter green bars, that's the spring timings. The darker green bars, that's the autumn timings, and you can see how much better the control was across those spring timings compared to the autumn ones. By playing earlier in the year, we're getting to that weed when it's young, it's more vulnerable. We've got a better chance of getting the turf to fill in afterwards and fill those gaps. So best practice is going in early in the spring. So best practice, apply in the spring when weeds are actively growing. Wait until they are actively growing, but try and get in there early. Don't apply to turf when it's under stress. Although we've seen no issues, it's not good practice to be applying herbicides to any grass that is under stress. The grass won't thank you for it, and if the weeds are under stress as well, they're less likely to take these active ingredients up and utilise them. 200 litres a hectare is our optimum, that's our recommendation. Do not mow for 3 days after application, leave it on that leaf as long as you possibly can. And for optimum performance, we should be applying this when the leaf is dry. Apply during using the 025 nozzles. That's assuming you're going to be in at that kind of 5-6 kilometers an hour. If you're going faster and you're going to wider areas, then the 04 may well be a good choice, but take a look at what you're trying to do and have a look at the nozzle charts. That leaves me with a couple of bits. So user trials, we've done a few user trials with this. One of the ones I'm going to share with you today was at Saffron Walden Golf Club, and this is over in North London, Cambridge way. We did the driving range here. We split it down into 7 different 20-metre plots, and the objective was to assess the turf safety and the efficacy of OVERTAKE at 120, 200, 400 litres a hectare spray volumes, applied under industry standard conditions. So we were trying to do some real life applications here, which is always nice to do. The assessment, we measured control as 100%, so we took the untreated area and that was the standard. Everything else was reference to the untreated control. So if you see a 0% chart, that showed no control and it looks exactly the same as the untreated control. If it shows 100% control, that means there was no weed left in it, and if it was 50% control, what we've seen was a 50% reduction against the level of weeds that were in the untreated control. Now what we did is we sprayed at those 3 different water volumes, and we did some more work with our water sensitive paper here to see how to get the very best out of it. And you can see across the range there, it's really interesting. I love this stuff. So 120 litres a hectare, looks like the coverage was quite poor across there, because at those low water volumes, then you are struggling to get good coverage. 200, we've got some really nice coverage, but we haven't really got any runoff So that's great news. Whereas if you look at the 400, and what's particularly interesting with this was a shrouded boom we were using in this scenario, and you could see where that shroud has just dragged back over the top of it. The higher water volume has meant you've got larger droplets sitting on the leaf, and the shroud is just wiping them off as we go. So you start to see when you look at this and understand why we get better levels of efficacy. Remember, when we apply this, only the stuff sitting on the leaf is going to be effective. If it runs off that leaf, it's probably lost. And what we can see here is we've got good control across all of them. So let's not look at this and say that the higher water volumes and lower water volumes are bad. They weren't, but we got better control in the middle. So you can see with plantain in this situation, we got 90% pretty much across the board. Daisy, we were seeing around 60% control in this trial. Dandelion, we were up at around 95%. Speedwell sitting in, that was an interesting one. We got up to around 85% control by getting the water volumes right, whereas we saw a big downturn where the water volumes were up at higher there. And then the clover, we saw good results across all of them. Now, a lot of this will depend on the leaf morphology and these applications, but it just shows application techniques do make a big difference. So the greatest success in this trial was at that 200 litres a hectare again. So as a general kind of summary of the user trials, the assessments were made at 5, 13 and 34 days after application. No phytotoxicity observed at any spray volume or application rate. Optimal performance again at 200 litres a hectare water volume. No additional benefits by going up to that 400 litres a hectare. We saw greater than 80% control day 34 after application at 200 litres a hectare against clover, dandelions and ribwort plantain, and the highest weed control was seen at the last assessment. So this was slow to deal with the issue, but it did work. So there we go, just into the conclusion. Benefits of using OVERTAKE: it's a broad spectrum weed control product. Safe at low water volumes. Spoken a lot about 200 being optimum. If you want to take it down to 120 litres a hectare, it's safe, just slightly less effective at those water volumes than at the 200. So that 200 is brilliant because for those of you spraying large areas, you can get a lot of spraying done at 200 litres a hectare, and it's safe and reliable. Best practice advice: 200 litres a hectare water volume. 025 XC nozzles, 2 bar, 5 kilometers an hour would be my recommendation. Spring is definitely better than autumn, and it's been researched and proven to be safe at low water volumes. That's it for OVERTAKE. If you've got any more questions, then please get in touch with me or your distributor, and we can talk soon. Look after yourselves and stay safe.